Hello. I've just finished eating. So this video is going to be about me radicalization and de-radicalization from the internet. So it's my journey into and out of it and why I've given up any sort of radical thoughts. You know, the internet and it's like I can't really blame the internet, it was my own fault. But I'll show you why I was susceptible to being a victim of the alt-right. For example, when I was younger, I started going to the gym around the age of 16, and then I got strong very quick, and I was always good at sport. No matter what sport I did, I was good at it, and got bored really quick and gave up. Which is, but because of that, like after like 6 months deadlifting without a belt or anything, and normal stance, not the sumo stuff, like a real deadlift, I did 225k at 75k body weight. No steroids, no nothing, and people around me couldn't get that strong, and even though they're heavier, some people taking steroids didn't get that strong. So, I'd always been inclined to think that things were genetics because I would just adapt to things very quickly, even if they're intellectual. Like my brothers trained, educate themselves hard, and they couldn't pass basic exams, whereas I could pass them if I tried, without trying, like studying. So I got a first in my degree. It's not a very good degree, but I didn't try really hard, but I still was the only person or one of two people to get a first. Um, Excuse me. So I was always inclined to thinking things were genetics, but it wasn't until, you know, then I wasn't really political, but as time went on, around 2016 or something, I don't know. Sorry, I've got wind in me. I fell into YouTube videos online, so people like Edward Dutton and Mark Collette and things like that would put out nationalistic videos, and I would think, oh, that makes sense. That fits with what I've experienced in my own life, and thought, yeah, that makes sense. The solutions are correct as well. It seems unfair what's happening in the world. And then that made me read a lot about IQ research, and I started reading the Journal of Intelligence and magazines and books called The Science of Mental Ability, like these, academic books on IQ research, like 1,000-page books long. And it was just full of this really scientific language and statistics. And it convinced me of genetic IQ differences, and it showed me that the IQ is such a big expanded variable. It showed things like twin studies separating identical twins at birth had no effect on IQ no matter what the environment was. They'd always have the same IQ. And similar personality. And I thought, yeah, that just fits what I've experienced in my life. And then, just recently I had a feeling like, just this can't be right. It's immoral, and the studies can't be right. Like, study was done on institutionalized black people in America, and they were put into this institution, given the best education they've ever had in their life. Nobody in their life had this education. It was the best ever, and PhD researchers were educating them for 7 years, and they couldn't raise their IQ above 80. And I thought, oh, it has to be genetics then. It has to be. But then, I read some left-wing newspapers and diversity DEI newspaper, journals, and realized that the feminists, they're right. It can't be genetic. Like, evolution doesn't apply to the neck and the head. It may not even apply to the bottom as well. Humans are separate. We have some sort of spirit that protects us from it. So we're like these beings different from animals. So the real cause of the genetic differences in the outcomes between people and groups of people must be like the ghost of racism. It must have gone into the institution where the doctors were educating the blacks, and it must have rewired their brains and just derailed their ears while they were listening and getting educated. And then it must have screwed them up during the tests and stuff, because evolution just can't apply to our brains. It's just impossible. It can only apply to animals. So they convinced me that everything that the alt-right are saying, and all this evidence about IQ research, and the nature of human groups wanting to be with themselves, and group dynamics and group selection, the spirit of racism just kills it all. Like, it must be the spirit of racism. And then, because I had accepted the spirit of racism causing these differences, I've become a social justice warrior, to contradict the mistruth, the lies of the alt-right. So I've also decided to turn against my parents and everyone around me as well, because they told me when I was younger that Santa Claus, he wasn't real, and the tooth fairy wasn't real. So my parents, like, against my will, forced me not to believe in Santa Claus and the tooth fairy anymore. But obviously they must exist as well, because they just forced a rabbit hole on me about losing teeth and where they go at night. But it must be true, like, because if the spirit of racism is true, then Santa Claus must be real. And if Santa Claus is real, then tooth fairies must be real as well. So yeah, that's my new setting. This is my new spirit. I'm going to be fully radicalized for anti-racism, against IQ. It just can't be true. Like, 130 years of research must be wrong. And all of this evidence, like, of differential, like, it must be wrong. Must be the racism fairy. Maybe it's the tooth fairy as well. Maybe they're a group. Maybe Santa Claus is in on it as well. So yeah, that's how I became de-radicalized. Thanks for listening.